Welcome to Powerhouse with Coach Maker, your weekly engagement into the heart of the nation's political and economic pulsation. Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on SSBC television. This is Powerhouse, where realization meets empowerment, just on SSBC television. Welcome to Powerhouse with Coach Maker, your weekly engagement into the heart of the nation's political and economic pulsation. Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on SSBC television. This is Powerhouse, where realization meets empowerment, just on SSBC television.
Hello dear viewer of SSBC Powerhouse with Coach Maker. It is another week where we will take a deeper dive into the political development shaping the country. Recently, we have seen President Salva Kiir has reconstituted the high-level committee on the implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan, that is R-Axis. The newly appointed 31-member committee includes representatives from all the parties within the revitalized transitional government of national unity, that is the RTGON. So the committee is mandated to oversee the implementation of all chapters of the R-Axis except chapter 2, which is security, transitional security arrangement, and then coordinating efforts for the upcoming elections, including close collaboration with the National Elections Commission, reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, that is RJMEC, and political parties, engaging with the stakeholders, regional and international partners and governments, mobilizing resources in partnership with the Ministry of Finance and international donors, fulfilling any additional responsibilities assigned by the presidency. That is the task they are going to carry out. And so I am now joined by a panel of political analysts and activists to discuss what this means for the peace process and whether this new one or this new move could accelerate the long delay implementation of the peace agreement, critical to the conduct of credible post-independent general elections at the conclusion of the transitional periods. With me, we have Sunday William, who is a political analyst, joining me here to contribute into this discussion. We have Jacqueline Siwa, political analyst. We have Mary Kaje Lona, civil society activist. We are here to discuss what we have just said, above what I've just mentioned, the new committee that has been formed to accelerate the implementation of the R-Axis. So to begin with, what do you think prompted the president to reconstitute this committee at this particular time?
Yeah, I would like to thank SSBC and the president of Powerhouse for this opportunity. Actually, what has happened recently, where the president has reconstituted the committee for implementation of the peace agreement, it is a way forward. Although there are, some of analysts or concerning parties and also peace monitoring bodies, although they are seeing that it is going back or in implementation of peace agreement, anyway it is way forward, so that at least we will go back to implementation of peace agreement.
Okay, Jacqueline, what do you think prompted the president this time around to reconstitute the already existing committee? That is after 2 extensions of the roadmap.
Thank you, our coach, and thanks to SSBC TV for hosting us. And I could say today is a very important day to look critically on how we have reached where we are, and whether committees have really achieved a lot in terms of the peace agreement implementation. And I think what prompted the president probably to reconstitute these bodies, because the previous body did not do enough in terms of the implementation of the peace agreement. One thing I would say is that we had the extension of the peace agreement several times. And from 2018, we had 100 days, which was given as a bonus to put things in order before starting the implementation. And then 3 years down the road, the agreement was not implemented fully. And by that time, it was 27%, which was only implemented. And it warranted for an extension. And the parties convened, and then they had the 2 years extension. And the 2 years extension elapsed. And then they formed the high-level standing committee, which was now to look at the peace agreement implementation and see where there is laxity, where things are implemented and left halfway, and where things have not been implemented so that they can start implementing it. So this high-level standing committee did only 10%.
All right,
and then we now have the president reconstitute what you call the high-level ad hoc committee. So I start wondering, the ad hoc committee, the high-level standing committee, what will they do different? And I think this is the question. And from the perspective, 10% implemented, and now again we are almost in the middle of the extended period, what will this ad hoc committee do? And we have a fragile situation now, where even the signatories of the agreement are not all in the implementation process. So what will the ad hoc committee do? And yeah, I will talk about the constitution of the ad hoc committee later, but
I think stressed that the 10% is only what has been implemented so far. Now that we have new faces, a new committee that has been formed, reconstituted rather. So do you think this 90%, what are they going to do?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to SSP for hosting us in at this very critical moment to discuss very important issues. I would like to pick back from the question you asked. What prompted the president to reconstitute the committee? I think it's clear realization and acknowledgement that the agreement is not being implemented as it should be. And the president is basically, in my own words, looking for ways of how to implement the agreement. But I would say for a fact that that is not going to help us. Forming a committee, forming an ad hoc committee is not going to help us, let alone the huge size of the committee. We need to ask ourselves, why is it that the agreement has not been implemented? The 90% is lagging behind and only 10% is implemented. That reason needs to be addressed. And I would say that one of the reasons why RRCs has not been implemented is because this is quite unfortunate to hear, but it's a fact, that there are people who are purportedly driving the process but do not quite understand the agreement. And such people cannot implement, because what are they implementing? So if I'm to send one message to the president, is that check your cadres, do they all know what they're implementing?
And don't you think this could be one of the reasons? Maybe the president has done his own analysis to evaluate why this implementation is taking time, and maybe this could be the reason why he has just reconstituted a new committee.
Well, maybe, but then the question is what I say. Check your cadres, even among the 31. Check, do they really know what needs to be done in order to move the agreement to the next level? And I have always said that one of the missing link of implementation of agreements in this country is perhaps we needed to develop an instrument of implementation. Because when you read the agreement, both the predecessor agreement to RRCs, you realize that it required further thinking to be able to actualize the implementation, but it's not happening. And that's why you hear that at a very high level, unfortunately, in this country, people still talk about the agreement and the constitution. While in the agreement, if they had read the agreement with understanding, they would know that the Transitional Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan, as amended, means all what is in the agreement plus the agreement, what is in the constitution plus the agreement. So that makes me to believe that actually those driving the process might not quite understand what they implement. And that need to be addressed. Yeah.
So why do you think the chapter 2, which is the most sensitive chapter, security arrangement, was left out of this committee's mandate? We have seen the other one except that security arrangement. Jacqueline?
I think it's quite, I could say, an oversight, which is from the side of the president. And it's unfortunate to say, like, security arrangement cannot be touched. If you look at why the peace agreement implementation did not move well fast, one of the things is security. And the security arrangements become core to the proper implementation of the peace agreement, because the unification of the forces have not taken place. And we are also battling with the issues of communal violences, where communities are also armed and they are fighting each other. And as citizens also, the country is still not safe. That means actually the core mandate of this committee should have been security arrangements. And then other things like the constitution making process, maybe setting up proper reforms of the governance institutions, and the preparations for elections can happen. Without proper security, I think we cannot even have peaceful elections, leave alone credible and fair. We cannot have peaceful elections. And our history of 2010 has shown for us that elections could turn violent. And also in our region, the East African region, we have seen where elections are also violent. So security should have been the priority of this committee. The other thing I could say is that in regards to the composition of the committee, I could say that it's just like I go to a salon, I make makeup, and I look different today. So some of the members of the committee, they'd been there in the previous committee. So probably they went and made some makeups and they are looking different. And if they could not implement the extension during that period, and then what could they be doing in this new committee? And I think this is the question. For example, in the previous committee, the mandate was to make sure there is a constitutional process going on, where we will have a constitution within the 2 years, where we will have also the electoral framework, and we end up with elections, and where security arrangements are also done, so that we have one professional army.
Let's hear from him. What do you think?
This didn't happen.
Do you think? What do you think? Why was the chapter 2 left out, the security arrangement by the president from this task?
Sometime when one used to think about the future of South Sudan, because now the future of South Sudan is now related and linked to implementation of peace agreement. So we used to see that the future of South Sudan is gloomy. It's really gloomy. No. Because actually, if you can see, the name of the agreement is the resolution of conflict in South Sudan. Resolution of conflict in South Sudan. I mean, if you see, also you can see the agreement, there are very important chapters of it. Something to do with institutional reformation. Something to do with unification of forces. That is, which is actually supposed to be implemented before the real time of implementation of the agreement, but it has not happened. Now you see the main party of the agreement. The main part of the agreement, some of their members are not now are in detention. They are not there. And their supporters, because they have got supported forces, they are still holding gun. So if you see all this, without these people to be released, the main part of the agreement, and without going back so that they negotiate and see the very important parties we will not implement it, then the future of South Sudan is economy. So, in my opinion and many people's opinion, and hence tax community used to request an appeal to us, to South Sudanese, is those who are now in detention is supposed to be released, so that there should be negotiation, so that those who are now still carrying gun to put down their arm, and then the army is unified. We have one security forces, and with this, then the peace agreement will go. Now, for example, if you go for election now, if you go for election, yes, okay.
He has stressed that the people who are in the detention should be released. On the other hand, we are seeing the ongoing conflict is still there. And why they were arrested is associated, is linked to what is going on now. The war, the conflict that is going on in Upper Nile. So if they are to be released, and yet the war is still going on, what does that mean for the people of South Sudan, the citizens who are suffering now in the hand of this ongoing conflict?
Well, thank you very much. I think he raised a very important point. The name of the agreement is the Agreement on Resolution of Conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. And conflict is not only violence. Conflict can mean conflict of interest. Conflict can mean conflict of priorities. And that means if you look at all the chapters of the agreement, we have conflicting governance priorities. We have conflicting security delivery as a service, conflicting interest in utilization of security appliances and equipment. We have conflict in humanitarian. We have conflict in resource management and economy of the country. We have conflict in constitution. There is a lot of conflicting laws that have been passed in this country. There is even conflict among the communities. That's why we have Chapter 5 for transitional justice. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that we need a holistic approach. And the designers of the agreement foresaw a situation where South Sudanese sit back, go back to the drawing board, and be able to design a system, a country that encompasses everybody's interest. We have only done 10% towards that. Detaining or not detaining is not going to help us. Let me say this for free. I think the best thing that can help us as South Sudan is dialogue and clear implementation, clear roadmap towards implementation of the agreement. And that the politicians know, the citizens know, and the technocrats in this country know.
But according to the politicians, they are saying they have been doing dialogue for the last, since this R-axis was formed. It has all been about dialogue, and it hasn't changed anything. So in another way, they are trying to see another mean, that is another alternative of taking the law into their hand.
Yes,
that is according to the politicians. That's what they're saying.
That's a very important point you have raised. What the politicians, if that is what the politicians are saying, I would want to add my voice as a practitioner, but as a technocrat, that the design of a process determines the result of a process. Yes, there may be dialogue going on in this country, but how is the dialogue designed? Is it designed to achieve resolution for the conflicts that we have? I think that all South Sudanese will have to look into that and be able to judge for ourselves. But as a person, I think we still have a lot to do in terms of designing how we implement the agreement, and that can be offered.
So what should the just reconstituted committee, what should they do to prioritize the first track, the peace implementation process, like she was saying before, it is just the same faces. It's like a rotation. So what then should they do, in your own opinion, as political analysts? What are you suggesting that they should do to speed up this implementation of the peace agreement?
I think what we may need to speed up the implementation, one thing we need to know is that whatever political processes go on in Juba have implication on the ground. And this is what is happening in regards to the detentions. And the more we detain some opponents whom we could dialogue with, the more fragmented the communities will be. Because the nature of our political affiliations is based on alliances of relationships that we have in the community. It could be ethnic, it could be tribal, it could be political, but it's having an impact on the ground. And from what we have seen is that the detention has not helped to de-escalate the conflict. And that means we need to be thinking of now dialoguing. And I saw something about the regional political dynamics to say like, oh, in Kenya, Raila Odinga was shaking hands with the president and they are talking together, right? And they are opposition. This is the kind of opposition that we may need to see moving forward.
But we've been seeing the president and his deputy plus others doing the same thing, and yet there's still
things
conflict going on.
And I could say that sometimes if we dialogue based on interests, but not on the national agenda and interest of the country and the people. And this is where we need to say every political dialogue should look at South Sudan first. And then the political interest, the party interest, and whatever will come last. But if we look at ourselves like politicians first, and then if I'm going to the dialogue, I need to look at where is my interest and negotiate based on my interest, we cannot be able to achieve a lot. So putting the country and putting the people first is very, very important. So in terms of what is the priority now, I think when you look at the mandate of this committee, one is for them to sit together as parties and stakeholders and see how can they resolve some of the, I could say, like sticking points now. And some of the sticking points include what he said, like the detainees. It includes also opening up the civic and the political space for dialogue. It also includes, I could say, like the nation building. Where are we in terms of the nation building? Where is our political transition? And this is very important for the dialogue to be taking place. So see that priority should be like, what are the pertinent issues now we need to address before we go even to the greater mandate of this committee. And I think this requires the president to have that heart and to show leadership, to say like, okay, we can start dialoguing now, and reach out to the other opponents and discuss as brothers and sisters.
Okay,
and
now
the committee can now be able to implement.
Now they have been given 4 tasks to do already by the president. 4 tasks are on the table to do. What then do you think they should do? Because every time they're given this one, they're given the mandate on what to do. But the implementation process, it would take long. That one now is not in the hands again of the president. You have been assigned to do something. Go and do it, and let the public transition. So what should they do?
Task which the most important task, it is security arrangement. Security arrangement. And as you can see the agreement, security arrangement was the first. It's the first one to be implemented before the real time of
now security arrangement has been left out.
Yeah. Now what the priority now is implementation of security agreement, which was not actually implemented because it has got many things related to return of IDP and also return of refugees, you know, and if and these are people who will go for election, okay. So we will not go for election because most of the people have left the area because of insecurity. So security arrangement is very, the first priority because when there is security, is related to everything.
She has said before one of the reasons why the implementation of this R access as delays because of the security chapter. And maybe this time around, maybe there's a way the president has designed to handle the security, which has delayed, so that at least when they are tasked to do this and they complete it, the 90%, and then maybe the security things. Don't you think it's positive this time around, or is it?
Well, I think we have two issues. Issue number one is that we would have expected a holistic approach, but we're not there because security has been removed. Security is an issue, but it has been removed from the mandate of the committee.
To be handled by the security.
So we're zeroing down on the committee. I would like to bring this to play that
tell them just two things what they should do this time around.
What they should do this time around. I'm a South Sudanese. I'm a child of liberation, and I will speak from that history. There is something that has been happening in this country. When a committee is being formed, one just wants to hear their name in that committee, but they don't ask themselves what are they going to do in that committee. My assignment tonight to members of that committee is to ask themselves the task outlined for us, which one can I do? Number two is that the committee is too big. It's not going to operate as a plenary. This comes to the question of design. For sure, the committee is going to have specialized committee. When we talk about specialized committee, we are basically saying that people with particular expertise are being pulled together to be able to put their expertise at play to help the bigger majority. So the team that would be looking at a particular task, for example, the task of election, it has to be people who understand the politics and the mathematics of elections. Because we do not want people in a committee just for the sake of being members. So that would be my message to them. And I think Jacqueline raised a very important point, which I want to link to our entire history of existence as a country. We forgot very fast that we got independence through a referendum. And that referendum was only an event. But there's a lot of work that needed to be done. The nation building and state building agenda has been abandoned in this country. If I was to speak and allow and advise the politicians in this country and all the citizens, we don't have the luxury of playing politics for the sake of playing politics. We are still continuing with the liberation. Can we continue and look at our involvement in the country, whether in the political processes or in the security or in service delivery, in a way that we are liberating ourselves from the historical injustices that we have gone through? Because not thinking that way is what the common people today, many of us are saying, actually, we seem like we are not liberated.
All right, dear view of SSBC Powerhouse with Akuchmake, we are taking our first short break. Stay tuned, we'll come back. And when we come back, we'll discuss more on this just reconstituted high-level ad hoc committee on the implementation of the R-Access. Let's go for a short break.
Welcome to Powerhouse with Akuchmake, your weekly engagement into the heart of the nation's political and economic pulsation. Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on SSBC television. This is Powerhouse, where realization meets empowerment, just on SSBC television. Welcome to Powerhouse with Akuchmake, your weekly engagement into the heart of the nation's political and economic pulsation. Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on SSBC television. This is Powerhouse, where realization meets empowerment, just on SSBC television.
Short break now. We have here the political analysts and activists to discuss their just reconstituted high-level ad hoc on committee on the implementation of the peace agreement that was formed, that was recently, that is about a week ago, by President, and was tasked with four mandate. He was tasked to do 4 of the mandate. So, and any other that will be added to that committee task. So, what do you think should be the priority? Like we have seen, there is coordination, overseeing the implementation of all the chapters. There is coordinating effort for the upcoming elections, that is including collaboration with the National Election Commission and RGMEC, engaging with the stakeholders, regional and international partners, and mobilizing resources in partnership with the Ministry of Finance. So Jacqueline, what do you think should be the priority here?
I think the urgent priority out of these 4 mandates is the engagement of the parties and the stakeholders on the pending issues of the peace agreement, and also in dialoguing towards implementation. We have seen a lot of voices calling for dialogue of the political parties, including even the political parties themselves call for dialogue. And that means they need to engage and see where have things gone wrong and where can things be fixed and how they want to move forward. And I think once they have that dialogue, it will pave way now for the other 3 priority areas, like now talking about the implementation of the whole R-Access, and then talking also about fundraising strategies and electoral processes. So dialogue becomes key, because as we see now, the parties are fragmenting, and I could say all the parties to the R-Access. And some of them are also having internal challenges. And that means if they have the opportunity to dialogue, they can address some of these challenges that are hindering the proper implementation of the peace agreement. And how can they do it differently? And as Lorna said, it's not going to be a classroom kind of plenary for them. I could say that they need to see where they can have expertise. So say from this committee, they can have a body that is working towards elections. They can have another body that engages on dialogue and also engaging with the international partners in terms of supporting the peace process move forward.
In that case, then how can they coordinate? How can they ensure the coordination with RGMEC and electoral institutions?
Of course, like the way I see this committee now, they are more like providing an oversight mechanism for the implementation of the peace agreement moving forward. And that means when they work as specialized committees, subcommittees in these areas, they can now convene to share what they have achieved and make their report to the president. I think I feel the president sometimes, he gives clear mandate on what committees can do, and we have seen these committees going and doing the contrary. We have seen when the committee went for the Tumaini peace process, the president was clear, go and negotiate and come back with a peace. They went several times and they came back without peace. The other one was to have the National Transitional Committee to work on issues of security arrangements. For 2 years, 3 years, we have not seen the security arrangement reaching to fruition. So that means that clear mandates are given, but implementation is also challenging. And I think this is either deliberate or because of lack of strategic capacity to comprehend the mandate, or they just formed, as Lorna said, I want to be in a committee so that I know, like, the president has issued a decree and my name is there. So we need to be tasking also these committees to account to the president and to account to the people. So if they cannot deliver, they don't need to be in another committee, because they have failed to bring, I could say, like, tangible results to the president, and what will be different for them when we continue to extend their lifespan. And I think this is where now we need to assess this committee. And I could say critical eyes need to be put on this committee now in terms of their deliverables in these 4 key mandated areas, and priority will be engagement.
With elections slated for December 2026, what do you think the Just Form Committee, what do you think they should do to speed up? As in, are we really going for that December general election or not?
I think elections...
No, now let's hear
Let
from...
me leave for Lorna, who is an expert in elections work, and I will talk about the legal framework later.
So Lorna, tell us what must be done to ensure credible election take place now that people are going for December?
Well, I think there are so many things that need to be done, and that's why I talked about how the technicality, the politics and the technicality of elections. The politics of the election is that for us to have a credible election, everybody wants to express their view, and everybody who has interest to contest and qualify wants to be given opportunity to convince voters. Do we have space for that? That's question number one. And the committee needs to do that analysis and be able to issue the report whether 2026 December is a realistic time. But then that's now the politics of it. We want it to be legitimate. But then the technicality of it is that, one, if you look at the institution that we expect to run election and the magnitude of election, a national election with several constitutional posts to be elected, is the commission well prepared to do that? They need to look at that aspect of preparation in terms of the institution and advise on what needs to be done. We have been engaging with the Elections Commission, and you can clearly see that the Elections Commission, the few occasions I've gone to the Commission, I sympathize with the members of the Commission, because I'm like, gosh, they have been given a huge mandate, but not really equipped to be able to hold that mandate. And if there's any mistake, and if there's any blame on them, part of that blame need to go to other sectors. So that's basically what I would say about... Not
equipped in what exactly, financially or...
Financially.
Skills
and equipment. Because election is a very technical process where there's huge data that should be flowing in a very short time. But if you go to Elections Commission, I want to thank the partners that have been helping with solar and all that, but sometimes even internet is a problem. How are they going to quickly relay or receive information from the field? And the field offices, how prepared are they? We know that there is an effort towards that, but those offices may not be well equipped to do that.
The mobile operators will pop in and
that is a wish.
Send the messages during election.
They will, but they cannot send critical data about maybe the votes. They cannot do that, because these are data that need to be protected, and you cannot enter critical questions. But coming back to the committee, what should the committee prioritize? I think the committee needs to sit down and plan, because more often than not, I have been engaging with South Sudan process before South Sudan was born.
And activists and some stakeholders have been with those politicians still.
Yes, and more often than not, what I have observed, and I stand to be corrected, is that when a committee is formed, people just continue to roll through. There's no clear plan as to what they intend to do for the first 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and until end of the time. And that's why you don't see proper reports, because we all know that technically speaking, if I'm to report on a process and I have not been meticulously following what I have planned, then I'm going to sit and concoct report. And that's why you see that their reports, sometimes you ask yourself, why are people writing this? What do they mean by this? So the key here, my advice to the committee, the key to success, the key to making any reasonable report that history will appreciate, is to sit down and have a plan.
You know, in all these committees that have been formed separately, there is always a representative from civil society,
not all,
youth, women. Of
not
course,
all.
This roadmap, you people have been represented there. What have you contributed also as other stakeholders apart from the politicians?
Well, thank you very much. I will not speak in the case of the roadmap, because when the roadmap was done, the first extension, some of us knew that there was this, the citizens were not consulted, the civil society did not participate, and I am so passionate about participatory.
The second one,
participatory governance, participatory approach. The second one is even more disappointing.
But you people participated?
We did not. The civil society did not. The document was prepared by high-level standing committee. It was brought to RGMEC, and few representatives from stakeholders expressed dissatisfaction, but their voices were minority.
They
and
voted
that's what
for
I
yes.
would say.
Some of them voted for yes.
Yes, but others voted no. And that's why if due to lack of appropriate vocabulary, I would say that it was shoved down our throat as citizens of this country. So having said that, I think one of the things that need to be done in these committees is, I'll speak from my experience in the National Constitution Amendment Committee, is number one, agree on rule of procedure, because that is where stakeholders get shortchanged. Number two is agree on a proper roadmap, so that you know what is to be done this week, what is to be done next week, but what comes first and why is it being prioritized. That need to be done for us to get this country out of this mess. Yeah.
Like they say, security begin with individuals.
Yeah.
What message security begin with you?
Yeah.
Yes. So what message can you tell to the people of South Sudan ahead of the election that is scheduled for December 2026? What should they do at their personal level within the area, especially these issues of insecurity, intercommunal conflict?
Yeah.
The South Sudanese citizen.
Yeah.
Yes, such as the cases of intercommunal conflict. What can you tell them?
Yeah, and as I said before, that any environment when there is insecurity, you cannot do nothing.
But you are the problem. You are the one causing security.
Yes.
And you are the one that needs security.
Yes.
So what should be done, or what should you do?
Yeah.
Like we are talking of insecurity here. You are talking of security arrangement.
Yeah.
Okay. There in this upper, like the case of Upper Nile.
Yeah.
The conflict is between those who are there.
Yeah.
The security, the SSPDF, and the citizens, the White Army.
Yes.
So now, what security should be done actually? What can be done? Because now the security is being taken there to protect you, and again you are fighting with the same security.
Yeah. But it's what I said before. You know, when we talk about security means many things. Okay. Even if at the time when the parties started implementing the agreement, what they did, they released a political detainees. Because they are part of this.
Now we leave the politicians.
They are part of it.
Let's talk about the South Sudanese.
Yes.
What should they prioritize? Jacqueline?
Yeah.
What should they do also to help in this implementation of the security arrangement?
What we may need to do as communities is to say enough is enough. We can no longer shed blood. And I remember when we went for the consultations at the grassroots, one of the quotes I got is, stop the bloodshed. And that means communities need to also de-escalate the conflict and stop the fighting. Politicians also need to de-escalate and stop the conflict. And then we now discuss what are the triggers of this violence. So for example, we need to understand what made these people to fight. Is it employment issues? Is it poverty? Is it lack of good governance at that local level? What could that be? But the first priority now is to say enough is enough of the bloodshed. And I am one of those who meet with young people and women at the grassroots. And one of the things I tell them is that, why are you fighting? And they tell me, you know, the politicians in Juba are the ones who are influencing us. And I say, what do they bring? They say sometimes they bring money. I say, can you take that money, make very good party for yourselves as young people, eat, drink, you relate, and then when they ask you, why are you not going to fight? You say, but yesterday we fought, we had a party. That should be the conversation for the young people. because I believe the more they start fighting, we are losing them, and we are losing the future of South Sudan. So I could say that for the leadership, fighting will not help us to resolve our issues. We are bigger than the current generational crisis. Let's look at South Sudan in 10 years. Maybe I'll be too old. Maybe even those young people would have grown. But if they grow in a conflict setting, they will not have the education opportunity, they will not have development programs, and then they will also age in poverty, which will not help them. And who will come and take up our country? Outsiders will come and occupy because they are educated, they are having all the resources and all this. So young people, let's embrace peace. And I could say that the campaign for peace should be going on, and the no to violence should be in everybody's lips, including with our politicians. I've seen a lot of hate speech.
All right, talking of outsiders, so what kind of support do you think are necessary from the regional and international actors in supporting the work of the just reconstituted committee?
Well, I think, thank you very much for that question. The international partners in this country in many ways. One, we have a cluster that you would say the humanitarian cluster, and that can also be stratified further. We have the faith-based institutions that have come with charity to the country. But then we have another category of international actors which are based on relationship. So I think it's a two-way thing. One is that those who are charitable should focus more on strengthening the nexus between humanitarian service delivery and civic engagement. Because South Sudanese are not speaking the right things. You know, we do speak the right things in smaller groups. You realize that somebody knows something is wrong, but they fear to speak. That fear needs to be demystified. And that fear, I would advise citizens to ask themselves, whichever thing that I'm seeing is wrong happening to another sister or to another brother, if it's happening to me, would I keep quiet? And if you cannot keep quiet, please don't keep quiet because another sister is going through that or another brother. So South Sudanese need to talk. How should the support be channeled? I think the support from international actors should not wait for the government to give direction, but rather bring suggestions to the table and dialogue with the government based on suggestions that they have seen. And most importantly, involvement of the community. The public needs to be involved, because we cannot say that every problem to the people is known by those sitting in the offices on their behalf. Today, I may be speaking passionately about people in a village somewhere, but if I'm not in that village, I do not know in the evening whether their problem is to have water, to have dinner, or to have light in their rooms. So that needs to be done. And I want to say that we need to go back to the discourse and to the practice of taking baseline surveys. I would say that sometimes the help that is being offered to South Sudanese, the assistance that is being offered to South Sudanese by international partners, it's not responsive. Because somebody sits somewhere, and I remember once looking at a concept note of a discussion, and I told them, guys, this looked like you're writing for South Sudanese in 2005. We are in 2025. So you need to know the reality on the ground. So I think the gap needs to be closed, and there has to be more conversation in order to close that gap, and we would say that we would then have responsive programs that would address the needs of the country and the needs of the people.
Talking of finances, we have seen one of the major things that has delayed the implementation of the peace agreement is the finances, the resources. So do you think the Ministry of Finance and the international partners will be willing and able to mobilize the resources that are needed on time before election? Ministry of Finance and international partners, do you think they will mobilize the resources in time?
Talk about the budget?
Yes, the money that will take us through elections.
Yeah, okay. you know, this is a real problem. We are now in June, month of June, and suppose the budget to be actually fasted and should be ready in June, so that it will be implemented in July.
Election
I think that, yes, it's supposed to be operational in July. And the budget used to start normally. I mean, the process of preparation for budget used to start normally from April. Yes, and then it go. Then at the end of June, it is ready. So I think unless it will be like other budget which was not passed timely. First of all, you don't have parliament. Parliament to pass that. I mean to work on that budget. Parliament is not there, and so the parliament is supposed to be there in April, so that they go over the budget and then they discuss it and then they endorse it.
We are talking of resources that will
I think there's no time for it now.
Reach the election time. Do you think the Ministry of Finance and the partners will actually mobilize these resources in time?
What we need first is the election program. And based on my experiences with partners, if you don't have a program or plan, they cannot be able to give you funding. So for electoral related funding, we need to have an elections program. And this election program will spell out the timetable for elections until 2025. What are the things that we may need to do? And then where are the deficit in terms of the finances? I think most of the partners, including the UN, they have indicated their support for the elections process and even for the peace agreement implementation. But sometimes there is no work plan or program. And I think for elections, we need to see that there is a clear electoral framework and clear structures of the elections. And that is when they can fund. I think based on our experience of 2010 and 2011, there were clear benchmarks for when, for example, the referendum could be concluded and what is needed. We knew when the registration could take place.
No, but according to their presentation, the electoral institution by then, that was last year, from the Bureau of Statistics, they wanted census before. According to them, they need 18 months to do census. The Constitutional Review Commission need also time to work on the Constitution. The Election Commission, that December 2026 can be met with based on their structure. But now the availability of resources is the obstacle.
I think resources could be one of the challenges, but also we need to hold these institutions accountable because we have seen times and again where the government announced we have given funding for this institution to do 1, 2, 3, and then we hear them also crying like there's still lack of funding. So if there is some money which is given, what have they done with that money? And proper accountability should also be done. And I think this will build a trust for the international partners to fund the process because accountability is very important. Not necessarily accountability for their money, but also accountability for the government money which is spent on these processes. And I know elections may require a lot of funding because it requires mobility and all this. But there are also certain things that may not even require funding. And this entails using the technical expertise and time of the commissioners. And in Juba alone, they can do more things that could trickle down to the ground. One thing I realize is that budgeting process is overrated in our country. And this is where it becomes very expensive to do some of these processes. For example, during the referendum, I worked for the government, and we spent less than $3 million to conduct a nationwide and abroad referendum. And there was still even some remaining million. Maybe we can say, okay, how can we do things differently and then have this and that, and then international partners take over the other ones. And I think transparency in these processes are very, very important. Yeah.
What are the risks if this committee fails to meet its objective?
We'll be in a dire situation, worse than today, because everybody is expecting the committee to move us out of this current crisis, which is already really bad. But I think there's a very important point that Sandy raised. You know, we, as a country, we need to ask ourselves as to why. Why do we do specific things? You know, if you look at a plan always has the activity and the timeline. Why do we have timeline? The timeline allows us to do specific things before the next one comes in. And that's why if there's a lapse, it usually causes a bit of, it shakes the plan. I would like to say that, take for example, what you have just raised, the question of Electoral Commission and Constitution Review Commission and political party and Bureau of Statistics. These institutions brought their plan, but their plans are being reviewed out of the bigger plan. And the question is, where is the bigger plan? And this question of where is the bigger plan is a question that I want to throw to the entire, right from the leadership of this country. And I hope this will be relayed to Mr. President, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Sudan, that we are running a country that sometimes does not have a comprehensive bigger picture. Therefore, the other pictures cannot fit. What we're suffering from is a turmoil, is a confusion. So the question is, where is the confusion? Because if we need to have budget passed, the institutions have brought their budget earlier on before the time, and when we go back to them, they take time. By the time they bring their budget, the budget process is already going on, and then it's too late, it's not incorporated. Then we relay information again to get supplementary budget. When supplementary budget comes in, time has passed. So I think there's need for South Sudan to go to a drawing board, for South Sudan to not have a broad project, but narrow down to key projects that are important to restore order, to restore that kind of, the mechanics of moving the country to the next level. And that is very important. If we don't get it, we will not be able to govern. And this governance, there's a question I asked, I was doing a research in 2023. I did scenario projection for South Sudan, and the question I asked, who exactly thinks for South Sudan? Because other countries have a central institution that does planning for the country, and once there's a gap, those institutions will raise signal so that the plans are aligned. We don't have that.
All right, we're coming to an end. What should the committee do in order to be trusted by the public? Now we have seen there's no. What should they do?
Concerning the budget?
For them to be trusted, for you public, the civil society, the youth, the young one.
Yeah.
Yes. What should they do? This new reconstituted committee, what will they do?
Constitution making? Not getting you. Yeah.
All right, Jacqueline, close it up for us. What should they do in order to be trusted by the public?
Yeah, I think one of the things the committee need to do is to immediately start the task which is assigned to them. And they should have a program of what they need to deliver, and with the clear timelines of how they want to deliver it. The other one is that the committee should periodically update the public on the progress of what they are doing. And I could say maybe even if every week they can come with some program on SSBC to tell us, like, as a committee this week, this is what we have done. Even if it is just coming out with their plan or having a meeting, so that we know, like, the committee is actively engaged.
All right, updating the public on weekly basis on what they are doing, especially these 4 tasks that have been given to them. The public, the political analysts, and the civil society are calling for a weekly update from this reconstituted committee to actually update the public what step they have taken, where they're heading. That brings us to the end of our discussion on Powerhouse with Akuchmaker, who are hosting political analyst and an activist, Sunday William, political analyst, and Jacqueline Nasiwa, who is also a political analyst. and Merekaja Lona, civil society activist, discussing on the just reconstituted high level, is it?
Ad hoc committee.
High level ad hoc committee on the implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan, that is the R-axis. Bye-bye for now, we are done.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome to Powerhouse with the Coach Maker, your weekly engagement into the heart of the nation's political and economic pulsation. Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m.